The sun just died behind what used to be downtown, and now you've got maybe 40 minutes before complete darkness swallows everything. Your legs are shaking from hauling water, your hands are blistered from prying open a convenience store that had already been picked clean twice. You haven't eaten anything real in 3 days, and your body is screaming one word at you: sleep. But here's the thing about the apocalypse that nobody tells you until it's way too late. Night doesn't belong to the tired. It belongs to Kevin from accounting, who watched you find those canned goods yesterday. And now he's got 3 friends who haven't eaten in 72 hours, and they've decided hunting you is easier than scavenging. So here's my promise. In the next 30 minutes, you're going to learn the 3 specific mistakes that get people killed in their sleep every single night, and exactly how to avoid them. Let's start with mistake 1, because it kills more solo survivors in the first 2 weeks than starvation, dehydration, and violence combined. You're exhausted, it's getting dark, and then you see it. A house, not a burned out shell, an actual house with walls, a roof, maybe a door that still locks. Your brain lights up because houses mean safety, right? They mean civilization. They mean you can stop being an animal for one night. That feeling is what puts you in the ground. Let me tell you about Marcus. He found the ranch house on the edge of a subdivision. Looked untouched, no broken windows, door was locked, which he took as a good sign. He cleared the rooms, barricaded the entrance, checked the back door twice. For the first time in 9 days, he let himself relax. He made it about 4 hours. The problem wasn't that people randomly found him. They'd been watching that house for 2 weeks, waiting for someone exactly like him. They knew every entrance, every window, every weak point. They waited until his breathing got deep, until his flashlight died. Then they started a small fire against the back door, just enough smoke to flush him out. When Marcus stumbled out the front, coughing and blind, they were waiting with crowbars. He had a knife. They had patience and numbers. The house that promised safety became his coffin. So what should Marcus have done? He should have understood that structures only work if you control every angle of approach and every exit. A house pulls at something deep in your survival instincts, but tactically, unless you're on a second floor with a rope ladder and 360 visibility, you're just advertising. You're stationary, boxed in, visible. Instead, think like prey. Prey doesn't hide in obvious burrows. Prey hides where predators don't want to look. That collapsed garage with the caved-in roof that smells like mold and dead rats? Nobody's checking that carefully. They assume it's unstable, useless. But if you know how to position yourself under debris with a tarp, clear sightline to the entrance, and the back exit through the gap in the collapsed wall, you've created a micro-shelter that's functionally invisible. It's miserable, it's cold, but you'll wake up alive. Now, mistake 2, predictable routines. This kills people who survive the first month but don't make it to 3. Humans are wired for patterns. You find a decent spot, sleep there, wake up safe, and your brain says, "This works, repeat." That comfortable repetition turns you from survivor into target. There are people whose entire survival strategy is tracking, not scavenging. They don't risk breaking into pharmacies. They watch. They learn your schedule. When you leave, when you return, what you're carrying. Once they've confirmed you have resources and a routine, they hit you at your most vulnerable. Sarah survived 6 weeks by being smart. She found a drainage culvert, half buried under brush, almost invisible from the road. Perfect concealment, good drainage, close to water but far from crowds. She used it 11 nights straight. On night 12, she came back after sunset to find 2 men already inside, waiting, with her cached supplies spread between them. They'd followed her 3 days earlier, watched her pattern, figured out her timing. She never made it out. Her mistake wasn't the location, it was solid. Her mistake was the repetition. The fix is operational randomness. You need 3 to 5 different sleeping locations, and you rotate with 0 predictable pattern. Monday, you're in the culvert. Wednesday, you're under that overturned semi off Route 9. Friday, you're in the crawl space of a burned apartment building everyone thinks is too unstable. Sunday, back under the semi. Then you skip the culvert entirely for a week. You never create a cycle someone can predict. Yes, this means constant movement. Yes, you can't stash all your gear in one place, but anyone trying to pattern you wastes time and eventually moves to easier targets. This comes from guerrilla warfare doctrine. Insurgent forces survive superior enemies by being impossible to locate consistently. You're an insurgent now. Think like one. Here's something most people don't consider, and this actually works in your favor. Most people trying to hunt you at night are just as exhausted, scared, and resource-starved as you are. They're not trained soldiers. They're not experienced trackers. They're regular people who've decided taking is easier than finding. But they're operating on limited sleep, poor nutrition, and desperation logic. Which means they make mistakes. They get lazy. They check obvious spots and give up. They assume if they didn't find you in the first 3 places, you're not worth it. This is why micro-shelters work, why randomness works. You're not outsmarting Navy SEALs. You're being slightly smarter and more disciplined than other desperate people. And that bar is lower than you think. Let's talk about sleep itself, because your biology becomes the enemy. The human brain can go roughly 72 hours without sleep before cognitive collapse. At 24 hours, you're functional, but slower. At 48, you're making mistakes, forgetting to check corners, missing obvious signs, leaving gear behind. At 72, you're done. Hallucinating, seeing movement that isn't there, hearing voices. I watched Cole try to push past 80 hours because he didn't trust his group enough to close his eyes around them. On day 4, he walked straight into a raider camp thinking it was his own people. Just walked up, waving, asking if anyone had coffee. The raiders thought it was a trap. When they realized he was destroyed from sleep deprivation, they took everything he had and left him cable-tied to a fence. He died of exposure that night, 15 feet from a road, because his brain had stopped processing reality. Sleep isn't optional. You will sleep whether you plan to or not. The only question is whether you do it strategically or whether your body forces you into it at the worst possible moment. This is where you flip your approach. Most people try to maintain their old rhythm, sleep at night, wake up during the day. That's suicide. Nighttime is when threats peak, so you do what militaries do in combat zones. Fracture your sleep into polyphasic cycles. Instead of one 8-hour block, take multiple shorter naps across 24 hours. 90 minutes at midday when sun gives visibility, another 90 at dawn when light's returning. Stay awake and mobile during deep night, 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., which is statistically when most raids happen. Why? Because human alertness bottoms out, core body temperature drops, melatonin peaks. Your ancestors weren't getting attacked during those hours, so your biology relaxes. But those ancestors didn't have to worry about people who know exactly when you're weakest. First week of polyphasic sleep is agony. Your body fights hard. By week 2, you've adapted. Now you're awake and sharp when everyone else is vulnerable. You're not staying solo forever. Humans aren't built for isolation. The ones who try to lone wolf it die from preventable accidents or lose their minds and make fatal mistakes born from loneliness. Eventually, you find people or they find you. And when you transition from solo to group, everything changes. Threat matrix gets more complex, but your options expand. The most powerful advantage is the watch system. Here's how it works. 4 people, optimal balance between security and resource consumption. You divide night into 3-hour shifts. Person A takes 8 to 11 p.m. Person B covers 11 to 2 a.m. Person C handles 2 to 5 a.m. Person D floats as backup for anyone sick or injured. 3 hours is long enough for meaningful sleep between shifts. Short enough the person on watch doesn't hit mental fog after 4 hours of solo vigilance. Critical detail: the person on watch does not sit. Sitting triggers drowsiness. They walk perimeter, stay in motion, keep senses engaged. But they're not a hero, they're a sensor. Their job isn't to fight off an attack alone, it's to detect threats early and wake everyone else instantly. A whistle, a shout, a code word. Within 10 seconds of detecting danger, you've got 4 people awake, armed, thinking clearly, making group decisions instead of one exhausted person trying to Rambo through an ambush and dying quietly while others sleep. But groups fail in ways solo survivors never face. Let's say you're 3 weeks in. Everyone's pulling weight. Watch rotations run smooth. Trust is building. Then one night, Derek doesn't wake Person C for their 2 a.m. shift. Person C wakes naturally around 4:30, groggy, and realizes Derek's gone. So is half the food, the medical kit, spare batteries, the good water filter. Derek wasn't asleep on watch. He waited until everyone hit REM sleep, then quietly signaled someone outside the perimeter. Maybe it was planned from day one. Maybe he got recruited by a larger group. Doesn't matter. You're now short on critical supplies, trust is shattered, and you've learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous threat isn't outside your perimeter. It's sleeping 3 feet away. The only defense is a probationary system that feels harsh but keeps everyone alive. New members don't get night watch for minimum 2 weeks. They sleep center camp where they can't signal anyone without waking others. They don't know cache locations. They get fed, protected, contribute labor. But they don't get trust. You watch them constantly. Note if they ask too many questions about defenses, who's on watch when, where important gear is stored. Observe if they try staying awake during other shifts. If they push back hard, get offended you don't immediately trust them, that's a red flag. Anyone who survived this long understands why trust is earned slowly. People who demand instant trust are either naive or running a con. Either way, liability. Terrain selection determines whether your watch system can function. You're not setting up in clearings, those are kill zones. You want natural defensive advantages. Hillside gives elevation, which means visibility of approaches. Anyone coming uphill is slow, breathing hard, making noise visible from above. Dense thicket provides concealment and makes silent approach impossible, but balance it with deliberate sight lines in expected threat directions. Water access is non-negotiable, but riverbanks are natural patrol routes for predators, human and animal both. So camp near water, not on it. Maybe 50 yards back, positioned in terrain that makes approach generate noise. Noise is your first perimeter defense. Deliberately create sound traps. Fishing line between trees at ankle height with tin cans. Piles of dry branches and choke points. Gravel or broken glass on likely approach paths. These won't stop attacks, they're early warning. They announce threats while still distant, giving your watch system time to function. I know a group that survived a raid purely because they'd scattered broken glass around 3 sides of their position. Raiders came fast, expecting surprise. Glass crunching under boots gave 8 seconds warning. 8 seconds woke 2 more people. That resistance made raiders decide the fight wasn't worth casualties and they backed off. Group never fired a shot, they just made themselves cost more than they were worth. That's the goal. You're not trying to win fights, you're trying to make yourself not worth fighting. Let's address predators that don't negotiate. Coyotes are opportunists, constantly testing your perimeter, waiting for mistakes. They won't attack grouped, alert humans, but they'll snatch someone who wanders 20 feet away and falls asleep before returning. Solution: enforced proximity. Nobody sleeps on outer edges. Everyone clusters center. Coyotes hunt isolated targets, deny isolation. Mountain lions are different nightmares because you won't know they're there until they've decided to attack. Ambush predators, silent, patient, watching from elevated positions for hours calculating angles. When they move, it's from behind, fast, targeting neck and spine. Only defense is eliminating preferred approach angles. Sleep with your back against something solid, rock face, thick tree, concrete wall. Remove blind spots. In mountain lion territory, watch rotation includes periodically scanning tree line and elevated positions with light. Not constantly, destroys night vision. Every few minutes, quick sweep. Just enough to disrupt their calculations. Feral dogs are most underestimated because people still think dogs and picture pets. These are packs that reverted to hunting behavior, but without natural caution around humans, wolves evolved. They're bold because they lived alongside us. Coordinated because pack hunting is instinctive. They've learned humans in collapse are poorly armed, slow, often alone. A pack of 6 will test your perimeter methodically. Send one as bait to draw attention while others circle to flank. Fire helps if it's large and hot enough. Small campfires just illuminate without protecting. What works? Aggressive noise and posturing. Make yourself loud, big, advance toward them. Throw objects, shout. Never run, triggers chase drive. If they commit to full attack, focus on the pack leader. Take down or seriously injure the alpha and the rest hesitate, break cohesion. That hesitation is your window. Bears operate on different motivation. They don't want to fight or eat you. They want your food. Rule is simple. Never keep food in sleeping area. Cache it 100 yards away, downwind if possible, sealed or hung from tree branches. Yes, someone might steal it, but that's better than a bear tearing through camp at 2 a.m. following scent of that granola bar in your jacket. Bears can be scared with noise and aggression only if caught early. Once committed, once decided food is worth confronting you, you're in serious danger. Best defense is prevention. Don't create the scenario. Now fire, where sentimentality meets tactical stupidity. Fire feels safe, represents warmth, light, humanity. That emotional pull makes it a trap. Fire after dark is a beacon visible for miles, announces, "Here we are, comfortable enough to advertise, come investigate." Light creates a bubble blinding you to everything beyond. You can't see who's watching from the darkness. You lose night vision completely. Smoke carries scent, marking your location hours after extinguishing. Hard rule, no fires at night unless terrain is so remote and defensible, risks are genuinely worth benefits. Even then, keep it small, shield from view, extinguish completely an hour before sleep. For warmth, rely on passive insulation, layered clothing, debris bedding, shared body heat. For cooking, use daylight when smoke disperses and visibility allows seeing threats from distance. Fire requires controlled, strategic use. The moment it becomes emotional need, it's a tactical liability. But let's talk about something that gets almost no attention until it's too late. Light discipline and how it destroys more careful people than you think. You've avoided the big campfire mistake. Good. But what about that headlamp you're using to navigate back to your shelter? What about the phone screen you turned on for just 2 seconds to check the time? What about that small LED flashlight you thought was dim enough not to matter? Every single one of those is a signal flare in the dark. And here's why it's worse than you realize. Human night vision takes roughly 30 to 45 minutes to fully develop after exposure to bright light. That means if you use a flashlight for even 5 seconds, you've just blinded yourself for the next half hour. You can't see threats approaching, you can't navigate properly without more light, and you've announced your exact position to anyone within half a mile who still has their night vision intact. I know someone, we'll call him James, who did everything right. Random sleeping locations, no fires, good concealment. But he used a small flashlight to check his water filter one night around 9 p.m. Just a quick 3-second burst to see if it was clogged. He thought nothing of it. 2 people watching from a ridgeline 300 yards away thought differently. They marked his position, waited 2 hours for him to fall asleep, and hit him just after midnight. He never heard them coming because they'd preserved their night vision, and he'd destroyed his. They navigated the terrain in complete darkness, while he would have needed light to even find his own escape route. The lesson isn't just don't use lights. The lesson is that light discipline is about understanding you're in a competition, and whoever can see in the dark while staying invisible has already won. So here's the system. If you absolutely must use light, and sometimes you do for medical situations or critical equipment repairs, you follow a protocol. Red light only. Red wavelengths don't destroy night vision the way white or blue light does. A red filter over your flashlight, or better yet, a dedicated LED, lets you see what you need without completely resetting your eyes. You use the minimum intensity necessary. You shield it with your body or hand so it's only visible from the angle you need. And you never ever use it pointed outward where it can be seen from a distance. This is standard military procedure for exactly this reason. Preserving night vision is a survival advantage that directly translates to lethality. But here's what most people miss. Even red light has a cost. The absolute best approach is learning to navigate and function in complete darkness. Your eyes have 2 types of photoreceptors, rods for low light and cones for color and detail. After about 30 minutes in darkness, your rods become exponentially more sensitive. You start seeing shapes, movement, contrast. Not clearly, not like daylight, but enough. Enough to move without tripping. Enough to distinguish a human silhouette from a tree. Enough to see someone approaching your position before they see you. This is the advantage you're throwing away every time you flick on a light for convenience. Train yourself during safer daylight hours. Practice moving through your shelter with your eyes closed. Learn to navigate by touch and spatial memory. When night falls, let your eyes fully adapt before you do anything. Sit still for 40 minutes if you have to. Let the darkness resolve into shades of gray. And once you have that night vision, protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. If someone in your group uses a white light, everyone's vision is compromised. That's why in group settings, light discipline is non-negotiable. One careless person with a phone screen can get everyone killed. There's also the psychological component. People use lights because darkness is terrifying. It triggers primal fear responses. But that fear is what keeps you alert. The moment you eliminate the darkness with a light, you relax. You stop listening as carefully. You stop being as aware of your surroundings. The darkness isn't your enemy. It's your concealment. It's your tactical advantage. The people who learn to be comfortable in complete darkness, who can move and think and operate without light, those are the ones who survive long term. Everyone else is walking around with a target on their back, broadcasting their position every time they get uncomfortable enough to need reassurance from a flashlight beam. Don't be that person. Mental battlefield. Fear doesn't just make you jumpy, it makes you stupid. When terrified of falling asleep, your endocrine system floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Short term, this keeps you alert. Long term, it shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part handling planning, risk assessment, impulse control. You make emotional decisions instead of strategic ones. Run when you should hide, hide when you should run. Trust someone because they smiled and your desperate brain latched onto that tiny friendliness signal without vetting. This is how experienced survivors die, not from lack of knowledge, but from biochemical override. Counter strategy is ritual and procedural memory. Before closing eyes, perform a physical checklist. Not mental, those fail under stress. Physical actions. Touch your knife to confirm it's accessible. Look directly at primary escape route to cement it in spatial memory. Make eye contact with whoever's taking first watch. These physical rituals create anchoring behaviors. They calm panic response enough to let rational thoughts stay online. Rehearse scenarios once before sleep. If I wake to shouting, grab knife and move to rally point. If I wake to gunfire, go through back exit without gathering gear. You're creating procedural memory that activates under extreme stress without requiring conscious thought. What athletes do before competition. What soldiers do before combat. You're doing it because survival depends on reflexes faster than panic. Urban survival is a different ecosystem. Buildings everywhere, people everywhere, more hiding spots, but exponentially more hunters. Strategy inverts. In rural areas, avoid structures. In cities, use them unconventionally. Most looters are lazy and risk-averse. They clear ground floors, easy access. Maybe check second if stairwell looks safe. But they don't want climbing 5 flights in darkness with heavy packs, not knowing what's waiting or if structure's stable. So go vertical. Find the mid-level floor, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and buildings that look damaged, burned out, structurally questionable. Create concealed sleeping position away from windows, behind debris, with entry partially blocked but not sealed. Enter and exit through non-standard routes. Fire escapes, maintenance access, adjacent buildings via broken walls, rooftop connections. Never front door, never ground floor, never obvious path. Cities also mean territorial control. Groups form quickly, claim blocks, buildings, establish patrols, defend territory with extreme violence because resources are concentrated and competition intense. As solo or small group, don't challenge established territory. Don't fight for it, don't negotiate. Goes through like smoke. Scavenge edges, forgotten zones, gaps between patrol patterns. Sleep in locations they've already cleared and dismissed as worthless or too damaged. This requires reconnaissance. Spend days observing. Note patrol timings, shift changes, coverage gaps. Identify routes they don't watch closely because they assume nobody would use them. Then use exactly those routes. Move through like you were never there. Operational security at this level is exhausting, but keeps you off casualty lists. Scenario that eventually hits every group.
Someone gets injured or sick, can't take watch, your rotation just lost 25% coverage. Hard choices. Push remaining members harder, cutting sleep shifts, knowing exhaustion causes mistakes. Relocate to more defensible terrain even though moving injured risks worsening condition. Gamble one night without full coverage. No clean answer. Best answer is prevention. Maintain health as tactical priority equal to security. Ration food fairly so nobody gets weak. Treat injuries immediately, even minor ones. Infections spread and compound. Enforce hygiene even when water's scarce because dysentery collapses group effectiveness faster than any raid. Healthy groups maintain rotations. Sick groups die in increments. Sound masking is advanced technique dramatically improving survivability. If positioned near consistent ambient noise, wind through ruins, river, distant machinery still creaking, use ambient sound to mask your noise signature. Time movements to wind gusts. Set up near running water so white noise covers whispered conversations. Position near structures naturally making sound as they shift. This is acoustic camouflage. Predators filter out constant environmental sounds and focus on anomalies. Make your presence part of the ambient soundscape rather than an anomaly. You become functionally invisible to auditory hunting. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Weapons while sleeping. Knife within arm's reach, secured but accessible in under 2 seconds. Fixed blade better than folder, no failure point, no fumbling in dark. Firearm is secondary. Guns are loud. Announce position to everyone within range. End stealth permanently. Primary plan should always be avoidance and escape, not firefights. If forced to shoot, you've lost surprise, your most valuable asset. For groups, one person per shift carries a firearm. Everyone sleeps with a blade. Distributes lethality without noise cascades. Here's the moral calculus that breaks people. You cannot save everyone who asks for help. Someone finds your camp at night, begging, claiming they're unarmed and starving. Some are truthful. Some are bait while their group moves into position. Some are scouts. Some are genuinely desperate and will take what they need by force the second you let them in. This is survival triage. Be compassionate during daylight, from a distance, with precautions. But at night, the camp is locked down. No new entries after dark. Period.
You can offer to talk at first light from distance. Leave supplies outside perimeter if you can afford it. But don't compromise security for a stranger in darkness. First exception might work fine. Second time, everyone's dead. Psychological toll of sustained vigilance is real and cumulative. Living in constant hyper-alertness, never fully relaxing, always listening, it erodes you. Stress hormones stay elevated, immune system weakens. You become irritable, paranoid, prone to judgment errors. Chronic stress response is dangerous as external threats because it degrades decision-making when you need it most. Mitigation requires discipline. You need routine and small moments of normalcy. Song hummed quietly. Joke shared during watch. Minutes stargazing before sleep. These aren't luxuries, they're psychological maintenance. Remind you you're still human, that there's something worth protecting beyond mere biological survival. Groups that lose this human element become nothing but fear and violence. They consume themselves through paranoia and infighting. Groups that survive remember why they're fighting to stay alive. Seasonal adaptation changes everything. Summer, heat, dehydration, insects carrying disease. Need netting or repellent, both finite. Sleep in coolest spots, usually low ground near water, but that's where predators hunt most. Force trade-off. Winter, cold kills faster than any human threat. Hypothermia shuts you down while you sleep. Need insulation, wind protection, close proximity for shared warmth. Watch rotation harder because cold induces drowsiness on top of fatigue. Rotate frequently, keep moving, do exercises to maintain alertness. Winter means tracks visible in snow. Camp locations must avoid leaving obvious trails. So here's what it comes down to. Remember those 3 fatal mistakes. Mistake 1, emotional shelter selection. Don't sleep in obvious houses. Sleep in invisible spaces predators don't want to check. Mistake 2, predictable routines. Rotate locations, stay random. Never let anyone establish a timeline on you. Mistake 3, sacrificing security for comfort. Security first, always. If you avoid these mistakes and stay sharper than the people hunting you, you might still be breathing when morning comes. That's the only victory that exists anymore.